Life before Mark was pretty straightforward. I'm Mina, by the way. I've been neck-deep in numbers and investment portfolios for as long as I can remember. By the time I was 30, I had a career most would envy, an apartment in the city, and not much of a personal life to speak of. Then, like something out of a movie, Mark walked into my life at a mutual friend's birthday bash. "Hey, I'm Mark," he said, flashing a grin that caught me off guard. "Heard you're the genius who makes Wall Street look like child's play." I laughed, shaking my head. "I just know where to put the money, that's all." "And you are?" "An architect," he replied. "I build things while you fund them, I guess." That night, our conversation didn't dip once. It was all laughs and lighthearted jabs. Mark was a charmer, sure, but he had this genuine vibe that made you really listen when he spoke. He was close to his mom, which he brought up a lot. I found it sweet, a real family guy. When he asked me out, I didn't hesitate. Our dates were something out of a dream. He was thoughtful, always surprising me with little things he remembered from our chats. Like the time he brought me a scarf, because I mentioned once that I hated the cold. Things moved fast after that. Vacations, moving in together, all the big milestones felt natural with Mark. His idea of a perfect evening was us curled up on the couch, him on the phone laughing with his mom, and me, just happy to be there. One chilly evening, wrapped in the very scarf he'd given me, we were watching TV when he turned and looked at me with those earnest eyes. "Mina, I've been thinking," he began, his hand finding mine. "How about we make this, US, official?" Like, really official? I didn't need a grand gesture or a fancy speech. It was Mark, just as he was, and that was enough for me. "Yes," I smiled. 1,000 times yes. After Mark and I decided to tie the knot, the question of where we'd live started to hover like a storm cloud. My apartment was cozy, just big enough for two, and almost paid off. It was my sanctuary. But before I could even think about how we'd merge our book collections, Mark dropped the bomb. "Mina, Ma's been thinking," he started one evening, his tone way too casual. "She thinks it'd be great if we moved in with her. Help out, you know?" I was chopping vegetables for dinner, and I swear I almost chopped my finger off. "Mark, I've been planning my life around that apartment." "My apartment," I emphasized, hoping he'd catch the undercurrent of my words. He sighed, running his fingers through his hair, a sign he was stressed. "I get that, Mina, I do. But this is my mom we're talking about. Can't we find a middle ground?" I put down the knife, wiping my hands on a towel as I turned to face him fully. "Middle ground? Like what?" "Because, honestly, I don't see myself living in your mom's pocket." Mark paced a bit, then stopped, looking like he'd struck gold. "What if we rent a place? Close to her, but not with her. That way, we can be there in a jiffy if she needs anything, but we still have our own space. How's that for a compromise?" I mulled it over, the practical part of me noting the benefits, but my gut screaming it was a slippery slope. "Okay, let's say we do that. We rent a place near your mom. What happens to my apartment?" "We could rent it out," he suggested quickly, almost too quickly. "The extra income could help with our rent." It was a sound financial move, I couldn't deny that. And Mark was watching me with those hopeful puppy eyes. "All right, we'll try it your way," I finally agreed, though a part of me was screaming that I was making a mistake. The next few weeks were a blur of moving boxes and rental agreements. We found a decent apartment not 5 minutes from his mom's place. It wasn't my first choice, but the things we do for love, right? I moved my things into storage and rented out my apartment. The day we handed over the keys to the renters, I felt a pang of loss that I couldn't quite shake off. Life in our new place was different. Mark's mom, Mrs. H, had a way of popping over unannounced. The first few times, it was charming. "Just brought you some leftovers." "I made too much, as usual," she'd say, placing yet another Tupperware in our already full fridge. But soon, those visits became a daily routine. One Saturday morning, as I was enjoying a rare moment alone with a cup of coffee, the doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I even answered. "Morning, Nina. I was just nearby and thought I'd drop in," Mrs. H chirped, stepping inside like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Morning, Mrs. H," I replied, forcing a smile. "Mark's not here right now. He went to grab some groceries." "Oh, that's all right. I came to see you anyway. We need to talk about the Thanksgiving plans," she said, making herself comfortable. She launched into a monologue about who would cook what, and I nodded where it seemed appropriate. It was clear this compromise was going to test me in ways I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't long after we settled into the new place that Mark's mom fell ill. It was sudden. Her health just took a nosedive one weekend, and everything changed. I still remember Mark rushing in, phone in hand, looking panicked. "Nina, it's Ma. She's not doing well, we need to go over there now," he blurted out, grabbing his keys. I threw on a coat and followed him out the door, my heart racing. When we got there, Mrs. H looked frail, clutching her chest and breathing hard. It was scary seeing her like that. We spent that night in the emergency room, and the doctors said it was a minor heart attack. They kept her for a few days, but it was clear she'd need a lot of care at home. As we drove back after her release, Mark was quiet, lost in thought. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Nina, I know it's a lot to ask, but could you help out with Ma while I'm at work? Just until she's better?" I sighed, knowing what my answer would be, before I even said it. "Yeah, of course, I can help." So, my days got a whole lot longer. Work, then straight to Mrs. H's, to cook and clean. She had this thing about fresh food, couldn't stand leftovers or anything pre-made. It had to be cooked that day, or she wouldn't eat it. "Nina, you know I can't eat this if it's from yesterday. Just doesn't sit right with me," she'd complain whenever I tried to prepare something in advance. "All right, Mrs. H, I'll make something fresh," I'd reply, trying to hide my frustration as I cooked another meal after a long day at work. This routine became my new normal. Even after she started getting better, the demands didn't stop. It was like she'd gotten used to the luxury of having a personal chef and maid. Weekends were no longer our time, they were her time. Mark and I spent them at Mrs. H's house, running errands, doing more cleaning, and sitting through endless conversations about her needs, her friends, her opinions on everything. Mark just nodded along, agreeing with whatever she said. One Sunday, I finally broke down in front of Mark after a long day at his mom's. "I can't do this every weekend. It's too much," I said, tears of exhaustion running down my face. Mark looked torn, but he put his arm around me. "I know it's hard, babe, but she's my mom. She needs us right now. It won't be forever." "But it feels like it's never going to end," I muttered, feeling both guilty and angry for even saying it out loud. Mark sighed, squeezing my shoulder. "Let's just get through this rough patch. Things will get better, I promise." I nodded, not convinced, but too tired to argue. The weeks turned into months, and Mrs. H's health was technically better, but you wouldn't know it from how she acted. It was as if she'd crafted a new normal, where I was more her caretaker than her son's wife. And Mark, bless him, was stuck in the middle, trying to keep us both happy. One evening, as we cleared the dinner table at his mother's house, I mustered the courage to voice my concerns. "Mark, I think we need to talk about maybe setting some boundaries with your mom. It's been really overwhelming for me." He paused, a frown creasing his forehead. "What do you mean? Mom needs us. Especially me, after what happened with my brother." I sighed, the weight of his loyalty pressing down on me. "I know she does, but it's every day, Mark. It's all the time. Can't we just have a weekend to ourselves once in a while?" Mark's voice grew tense, his usual easygoing demeanor hardening. "Nina, you know I can't do that to her. My brother left her all alone because his wife didn't want him around Mom. I can't just abandon her." The mention of his brother always brought a shadow over him. "But aren't we also important? Our marriage?" I pleaded, hoping he'd see my point. He shook his head, his tone resolute. My mom comes first, Nina. She raised me by herself. I owe her everything. I felt a mix of frustration and admiration for his devotion. Meeting him halfway, I let go of the argument, not because I agreed, but because I loved him. Okay, Mark. Let's not change anything then, I conceded, though every fiber of me screamed in protest. As the years trudged on, nothing changed. His mother's health didn't decline, but her demands escalated. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, Mark brought up the idea of having a child. My heart melted at the thought. Maybe this was what we needed, a new beginning. Really? You think we're ready? I asked one night, hope flickering in my chest. Yeah, I think it's time we thought about our own family. Mark smiled, and it was like seeing the man I fell in love with all those years ago. So, I threw myself into preparations. I started eating healthier, and even joined a local gym. Everything was about getting ready for pregnancy. But a year passed, and nothing happened. Concerned, I decided to consult a doctor and underwent a series of tests. Sitting in the sterile clinic, the doctor's words felt surreal. Your hormone levels suggest you've been taking contraceptive pills. Are you sure you haven't used any birth control? I stared at her, my mind racing. No, I've never taken them. There must be some mistake. But the tests didn't lie. Confusion turned to suspicion, and a cold fear settled in my stomach as I drove home. The quiet of the apartment felt like a blanket as I walked in, my mind turning over every possibility. Where could those drugs have come from? Mark was still at his mother's, fussing over something or the other. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. Pouring myself a glass of water, I sat at the kitchen table, the test results lying accusingly in front of me. Who had access to my food, my drinks? Only one person besides Mark. Mark came home that evening, his face drawn from a long day. I was sitting in the living room, the clinic's papers strewn across the coffee table like some accusatory display. He dropped his keys on the table and glanced at the papers before looking up at me. What's all this? He asked, the worry lines around his eyes deepening. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling slightly. I went to the doctor today. They found traces of birth control in my system, I said, watching him closely. Mark looked as puzzled as I felt. Okay, we'll figure this out, Nina. There's got to be an explanation. I nodded, though my mind raced with dark thoughts of betrayal. The next couple of days were tense. I tried to act normal, but suspicion gnawed at me. It wasn't until I was cleaning at his mother's house that a clue literally fell into my lap. While wiping down the kitchen counters, I opened a drawer to put away some utensils, and there it was, a package of birth control pills, half empty. My heart stopped. I grabbed the box, staring at it like it was a snake. Just then, Mrs. H walked into the kitchen. Oh, Nina, there you are. Did you finish what's that you've got there? I held up the box, my voice cold. Care to explain why you have these, Mrs. H? We glared at each other, the air thick with tension. Finally, she huffed. Fine. I switched your vitamins with them. You and Mark don't need a baby right now. You need to focus on taking care of me. Rage and disbelief warred within me. I stormed out of the kitchen, the box of pills tight in my grip. When I got home, I waited for Mark, the evidence burning a hole on the table. He came in late, tired. When he saw the box and my face, he knew something was wrong. Nina, what's going on? I threw the box at him. Ask your mother. She's been drugging me. Mark picked up the box, his face going through a series of emotions, shock, confusion, and then, to my dismay, understanding. She told you, then, he muttered. She mentioned something about making sure we were ready. I didn't know she'd actually do it. I stared at him, my heart breaking. And you're okay with this? With her playing God with our lives? Mark looked conflicted. I know, but can't you see why she'd do it? Just let it go, Nina. Please. I was stunned into silence. The man I loved, asking me to overlook such a betrayal. Despite the turmoil, life had to go on. And 2 months later, somehow, I was pregnant. The news was met with a cold reception from Mrs. H, and Mark seemed distracted, distant. The closer I got to my due date, the more I threw myself into preparations. Enrolling in prenatal classes seemed like a good way to distract myself from the mess at home, but Mark was less than enthusiastic. Every Saturday morning as I got ready, the same conversation would play out. Are you sure you don't want to come with me today? It could be fun, and it's good info. I'd suggest, hoping maybe this time he'd change his mind. He'd make a face, already backing out the door. Ah, babe, you know how these things bore me. Plus, Mom needs me to help her with the garden today. You go and tell me all about it later, okay? So, I went alone, sitting in a room full of couples. I felt the weight of their paired presence, the shared smiles and touches. It stung, deep and personal, and I'd drive home feeling lonelier than ever. Amidst this, I found solace in planning for the birth. I chose a clinic outside the city, known for its excellent care and serene setting, a stark contrast to my chaotic life. It was pricey, but I had been saving every penny from the apartment rental, my little nest egg. One evening at dinner with Mark and his mom, the topic of money came up. Mrs. H was quick to voice her opinions. Children are such a huge expense, she clucked, shaking her head. And you, choosing the most expensive clinic. Seems excessive, doesn't it? I bristled at her tone, but kept my voice steady. I've been saving up for this, Mrs. H. It's important to me. The environment there is healthy, and they have the best facilities. I think our baby deserves that start. Mark, who'd been silent, looked up. You've been saving? Like, how much are we talking about? I've got a reserve account from the apartment rent. It's enough to cover the clinic and then some, I said, immediately regretting sharing that information as I saw the gleam in Mrs. H's eye. As my due date approached, I decided to take a week to myself. I booked a stay at a nearby sanatorium, craving peace, before the storm. 2 days into my retreat, my phone rang. It was Mrs. H. Nina, you need to come back. Just come quickly, was all she said before hanging up. I tried calling Mark, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Fearing the worst, I packed up and drove back, my mind racing with every possible disaster. Arriving home, I found the apartment locked and no sign of Mark. I hurried to Mrs. H's, where chaos greeted me. The house was a mess, decorations strewn everywhere, and a banner that read, "Welcome little one." What's going on here? I demanded, my fear turning to anger. Mrs. H shrugged, barely looking at me. We were just celebrating the upcoming arrival. Got a little out of hand, I guess. You'll help clean up, won't you? I stared at her, incredulous. I'm nearly due, and you pull me back for this? I thought it was an emergency. Too exhausted and furious to argue, I dialed a cleaning service, giving instructions as I tried to calm my racing heart. But the stress had taken its toll. As the cleaners buzzed around, my contractions began, a sharp, undeniable pain that doubled me over. With Mark still absent and his mother dismissing my pain, I called an ambulance myself. The paramedics arrived quickly, and as I was wheeled out of the house, the last thing I saw was Mrs. H's annoyed face. The days following the birth of my son were a whirlwind of emotions. Mark arrived at the hospital breathless and disheveled, having missed the birth. His excuses were flimsy, his apologies empty, as if he was reciting lines from a script he barely remembered. My mother-in-law, true to form, didn't show up at the hospital. Later, I heard from Mark that she believed newborns shouldn't be shown to outsiders until they were a month old. Mom says it's bad luck to show the baby too soon, Mark relayed over the phone. Returning home to the rented apartment felt like stepping into a sanctuary. I was alone, with no hovering presence of Mrs. H, just me and my baby. That peace shattered when I received the clinic's bill. An additional $5,000 was due, a sum I hadn't anticipated. Confidently, I went online to transfer the amount from my reserve account, the one filled with rent from my apartment. My heart stopped as the screen showed a balance far less than what should have been there. Panic set in, and I frantically dialed Mark. "Mark, there's barely anything left in the reserve account. There should be over $50,000. What happened?" There was a pause, and then he mumbled something that made my blood run cold. "I had to help Mom out. She needed it for her vacation, you know, after all the stress." "Stress? What stress could possibly justify you taking our money, my money, without even asking me?" I choked out, my voice rising. "She's been really tired, Nina. All the work around the house, and with the baby coming, she just needed to get away. To relax," he explained, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. That was the last straw. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, nothing would ever change. The rest of the day passed in a blur as I contacted a lawyer and drafted divorce papers. When Mark came home to find them on the table, his reaction was not what I expected. He looked at the papers, then at me, almost relieved. "Okay. If that's what you want, Nina." He signed them without a fight, without even a hint of wanting to resolve things. Before I knew it, he was gone, back to his mother's house as if nothing had changed. In the silence that followed, I packed a few belongings and my son's things. The tenants at my apartment had just left, and it seemed like the universe was handing me a lifeline. Going back there wasn't just a necessity, it was a return to a piece of myself that I'd left behind. A few days had passed since I settled back into my old apartment with my son when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered, expecting another call about mundane things like utility bills or offers I didn't need. Instead, a man's voice came through, unfamiliar yet earnest. "Hi, is this Nina? I'm Alex, Mark's older brother. I heard you had your baby. Congratulations." I was taken aback, not just by the call, but by who it was from. "Oh, thank you. Yes, it's been a whirlwind. How did you get my number?" He chuckled softly. "A friend of a friend kind of thing. I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to say congrats. I know things haven't been easy." His voice was kind, and something in his tone made me want to open up. "No, I don't mind. It's actually nice to hear from you. Mark mentioned you, well, he mentioned you stopped talking to your mom." There was a pause, and when Alex spoke again, his voice held a weight of sadness. "Yeah, that's right. She tried to claim my wife's inheritance. Said it should be kept in the family. We disagreed, and things got ugly. I had to choose, and I chose my wife. Mom couldn't accept that." Listening to him, it was like seeing my situation reflected in a mirror. "I understand more than you might think," I said, my voice low. "Mark did something similar with money I saved. It's been rough." From there, we kept in touch, and Alex became a surprising pillar of support. Bolstered by our conversations, I decided to take action. Mark had taken nearly everything I'd saved, and I wasn't about to let that go. Confronting him was inevitable. "Mark, we need to talk about the money," I said during one of his brief visits to see our son. "You had no right. And if you won't return it willingly, I'll have to involve the police." He laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "Go ahead. See where that gets you." So I did. I went to the police, filed a report, and watched as the slow wheels of justice began to turn. An investigation uncovered the truth. Mark had forged my signature to transfer the funds to an account he controlled, an account he gave his mother access to. The evidence was undeniable, and the case went to court. Both Mark and his mother were found guilty of fraud and theft. They received suspended sentences due to their clean records, but were ordered to pay restitution. The day the judge ruled in my favor, ordering them to return the stolen money, felt like a victory, albeit a bittersweet one. Mark signed over the checks with a scowl, his mother silent beside him, her eyes dark with anger and defeat. I hope this teaches you a lesson, I said to them outside the courtroom, holding my son close. Back in my apartment, as I put my son to bed, the city lights twinkling through the window, I felt a sense of peace. I was finally home, truly home. I was free from the toxic ties that had bound me, ready to rebuild and start anew, for my son and for myself.